The fish stick, a childhood staple, a freezer aisle favorite. But how often do we question what's actually inside that golden crust? Behind the convenience of modern seafood lies a murky industry, opaque supply chains, questionable sourcing, and environmental costs that we rarely see. But today's episode, it's a breath of salty fresh air. We're casting off with the founders of Fairweather Fish, a seafood company rooted in the wilds of Alaska and built on cold, hard integrity. There's no mystery meat, no shady sourcing, just the real deal reeled in with care. Fairweather isn't just a seafood brand, it's a living legacy of grit, sustainability, and flavor. Born on the banks of the Alsek River and carried forward with every clean, consciously sourced filet. So if you're ready to taste what integrity really means and hear what it takes to build a business from the wild up, this one's for you. Hopefully all of you. Hit subscribe. Let's dive into a story as rich and deep as the Alaskan waters themselves. It's time to go fish. Welcome to the Dean's List, engaging conversations at the intersection of entrepreneurship, artistic expression, and holistic health. Experience wellness in full color, where fashion, beauty, and art blend with body, mind, and soul. Embark on a journey that dresses your aspirations in style, paints your life with beauty, and sculpts your well-being in every dimension. This is the Dean's List, where inspiration is always in session. Welcome to the Dean's List, where we discover the dynamic interplay between healthful living, creative ventures, and entrepreneurial journeys. I'm your host, Allison Dean, and today we're diving into the world of sustainable seafood with Caleb and Jess Robbins, the visionary duo behind Fairweather Fish. From their commitment to sourcing the freshest, most responsibly harvested seafood to their passion for supporting local fisheries, Caleb and Jess are redefining the way we think about our oceans and our plates. Join us as we navigate the currents of sustainable business, healthy eating, and how Fairweather Fish is making waves in the world of seafood.
Hello,
Caleb and Jess.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. I feel like it's quite the story, given that you both have known each other for quite some time. And I think that that's not necessarily a common thing. At least I think you're my first duo that's known each other since they were kids. So can you kind of just give me the beats, the timeline, like walk us through how we arrived at today?
When I showed up in middle school and we met each other, we knew each other, I guess we were in the same class in middle school. Because my parents wanted us to try living in two different places, so we moved down here for the winters to do schooling.
We being you and your siblings?
Me and my siblings and my family. So we fished in Alaska in the summer, and then we'd come down here for school. And so we met at the same school.
Okay. And you both, so you were already fishing with the fam. What about you, Jess? Was fishing
Not
a part of the life
no.
at that point?
I was born and raised in Caldwell. We just happened to go to the same school. It was a academy out in Greenleaf that we went to together. So we've known each other since middle school, friends in middle school, friends in high school, and then started dating when I was in college at Boise State. And Caleb was traveling back and forth. He was fishing in Alaska in the summer, and he was coming down to Idaho for the winter. And that's how we met.
Okay. And then when did the business begin? So how did that all take shape when it was like, okay, this is going to be the full-time thing? So it was already, Caleb, your family was already doing it, or was it already a family business at that point? Or did it begin with you?
It was a family business doing set netting, so we were doing
different kind of fishery,
different style of fisheries. So we were starting off, we were set netting in a river called the Alsek River, and then when I was 14, 15 is when we gave a couple farmers markets at the original Capital City Public Market when I was kind of one, or maybe it had just split, but we had just a sign and a cooler. And we did it with my dad just here and there when we had some space available. But the fishery is a lot smaller and slower. So then when I graduated, me and Jess weren't together. We knew each other. and I graduated, and then I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't think I like where I'm at. I like the river fishing, but I invested into it. I have the permit still and cabin sited, but I wanted to see more of Southeast Alaska. And so a friend of mine, or an older mentor of ours that fished with our family there in Alaska, he also did another fishery once the summer fishery was over, which we never got to partake in because it was school time. So I was like, all right, I'll jump in with you, jumped on his boat, and we just headed down Southeast Alaska. So, because Yakutat's more in the little pit, the topmost of Southeast. So the southern range is more common. So we got in his boat and traveled south and fished around Pelican and a few different little areas. And that was this hook and line fishery, this troll that I didn't know anything about. And then jumped on a longliner and learned a little bit about longlining, and I kind of got the bug I only did about two months of that. And I got the bug and I was interested. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then that winter, an older friend of my grandpa's was trying to sell his troller, and my grandpa was like, hey, you went trolling. Do you like it? This older guy, I knew from Coast Guard stuff. He's selling out. He's retiring and whatever. And so me and my dad visited about it, and him and my mom, because I was the youngest kid, so I was the last out of school. My mom and my dad were done with coming to Idaho. They wanted to do full time in Alaska. Back to that again. And so we kind of like partnered up on the boat, and he fished it for winter fishery, which is a winter king fishery. It's a pretty slow process. You get, some days you get 0, some days you do a lot better. And it's more of a grind. If you have a house there, you can grind and do it and make it worthwhile. We gave it 2-3 years, and we tried that, and it didn't really work for us, me and Jess, when we were together. So we just did the summer fishery. And so I got back home that year of trying that, and then we started hanging out, and then we started dating. And she was still going to Boise State. So I picked up this boat in Sequim, Washington, and took it up the coast from Washington all the way up to Ketchikan. And that's where the guy rode with me to get me through Canada, because I didn't really know how to drive a boat. I just worked on a boat for 2 months, and I grew up skiff fishing, which is an outboard. So it's a different concept. It's a tiller handle. It's not open ocean. I can read a river. Reading an ocean is a whole different concept. Currents and weather and patterns, and it's a lot bigger stretch. So the guy we bought the boat from rode with me from Sequim, Washington, all the way to Ketchikan. So he helped me navigate through Canada and dealing with all that, which is, it's kind of tricky. You got to talk to the Coast Guard, and if you tie up, then you have to tie up to a dock or whatever. You got to check in and make sure, Canada knows who you are and what's going on and where you're headed. And then when you get back to the States, they got to check you out again. So made it to Ketchikan. Old owner got off, and it was just like, it was me and a buddy, and it was like, okay, we just kind of practiced docking for a few days, like tying the boat up and docking, and then made our way to Sitka, because I was just told in like the handbook from the guy, like, go to Sitka, you'll meet people there, and you can start doing some fisheries there that are this early. Because I had only done the fall season, because I'd always river fish. So ran into a guy and learned how to chum fish. So chum fishing was our main fishery, because it feels
important to clarify, chum are one of the 5 species of salmon.
Yeah.
It's not often one that people eat is like their main course for dinner, but it's smoked a lot. It's kind of considered a lower grade of fish.
It's kind of like your cheeses. You have like your base, just like white cheddar that doesn't taste like much. It's just cheese.
Yeah.
And then you got your fancy Parmesan or whatever. So your king salmon is up in your Parmesan range.
Yeah.
And pink and Kita, are known as chum, are on that lower range. They're just very simple. It's not as much fat, is why you're not getting the flavor. The flavor's super mellow, because the fat content's a little bit lower, but there's still a lot of healthy omega-3s in both of those fish. So we started with the lower end fish, because they're easier to catch. You can do more of it. It's more of a quantity. It's an inside water fishery instead of being on the open ocean. Pinks and chum fishery is you're on inside waters. So it's a lot simpler. It's less scary. Like You know, the beach is right there. I can see it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of boats that fish around each other.
It's kind of a good like intro to ocean fishing.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay. So then I talked to Jess. Like, you want to come up and try this? You know, like I just had lost my deckhand. He gave it a shot. He was with me for a month. It wasn't for him. It was too solitude. It's just, you know, you're just on the boat. This is before cell phone service and Elon Musk gave us internet everywhere. Like, it was, you didn't have connection except for when you tied the boat up with fellow fleet mates or the dock and like catch up. Yeah. Because there were some areas that had cell phone service, like if you were in Ketchikan or in Sitka, but typically the fishing grounds aren't in town. So we made it to another spot in the fishery, and then she came up for a month, caught a ferry, came out and helped me fish for a month in between.
During college break in the summertime.
So we did that. We chum fished and did that like as our main fishery in the summertime. We did that together until you got out of college. Mm-hmm.
So Jess, for you, during that period of time, the love of fishing was sparked in you in that, you know, short period of time when you were on break and you were on the boat.
I don't know if I'd say the love of fishing. I drug her through some hard, because I grew up just like, with the set netting where I talked about at the beginning, it's a 24-hour fishery. So it was like you fish for 24 hours as hard as you can, and then you have the week off. Like mend nets, get your gear worked up, or sometimes it'd be a 48-hour opener. So I had that mindset going into trolling, and trolling's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to stop. So then I just jumped on board.
Say it was more like loving being with this person, and this is what he loves to do. So sure, what else am I gonna do? So I was still in school during the school year. I was working like as a barista when I could between classes, and then summertime I would go up and fish with him. We did that he started running open ocean fishing boats in 2011 when he was 18. So we did that for 2 summers with crew. And then it would be in 2013, I hopped on board. 2013, we were fishing together for the first summer. 14, we fished together. And then that winter I graduated college. And so then it was like, okay, do we make this our career, or do I go get a job in my degree field? Right. That was kind of like the crossroads.
Because I was helping a buddy doing landscaping and starting to enjoy it because every winter I worked a different job. Like I worked for Discount Tire. I worked for landscape mowing. A guy that did a bunch of handyman work, cabinets and whatnot. So I had a plethora of what I'd like. I knew I could do something else. And it was like, I knew it was my passion, but not hers. So we came into 2015, like, okay, this is a pivotal point. Like, me and Dad's boat was paid off, so I could disconnect from that, and he could just keep the boat, and they could keep doing their winter fishery. It was to where we both helped each other with that first boat. It was basically like we didn't really make money on that one. We just kind of broke even, but it paid for one permit. And so it was like, that was basically my 5 years of college was leasing that boat and learning how to fish. So it was like, we could either walk away from it then and do something completely different. Like we talked about it. We ran all these different options. Like, do we want to stay in Idaho full time? Do we want to be in Alaska full time? So like that 2015 year, she had graduated and we really sat down all winter and like put a ton of thought, like what's next? Like, cause we got to kind of decide, it felt like. In at least our standpoint, even though we were still young, like we didn't really need to make that big of a decision, but we felt we needed to, because that's where our head was, because we'd already put 3-4 years together in learning this trade together. So it felt kind of easy, but also we knew we could do something else if we decided as well.
Yeah.
And then that's where we got lucky because your last year of school.
But you decided.
Yeah, kind of like the big catalyst is the universe sending us the message, should we fish full time? Should we go do something else? Was I met a gal in Boise State. She and I became gal pals in a class because we were both wearing those tall brown rubber fishing boots. They're called Extra Toughs. So, like, for Alaskans, when you see somebody else wearing extra tufts in the wild, like, no matter where you are, you go, oh, like, we know each other now,
It used to be a big statement.
We both wear extra tufts.
Because extra tough wasn't famous.
They're more famous now, but 10, 15 years ago, it was like, you're Alaskan.
Okay.
So she and I met in school. And she said, hey, you know, my dad's selling his fishing boat. Because while we had mentioned, you know, okay, I'm graduating this winter. We're kind of boat shopping. And she said, well, my dad's selling his fishing boat. He's up in Sitka. Maybe it's a boat you guys would be interested in. And I mean, there's 10, 15 totally different kinds of fisheries in Southeast Alaska. There's tons of different kinds of boats. So the chances of her dad's random fishing boat being like exactly the kind of boat we needed to purchase was very odd, but it was. That was literally exactly the hull, make, rigging, everything that we were looking for.
In our category, it was our dream boat.
It was our dream boat at that time.
Out of our list of boats we were looking at, a boat like that was like, oh man, wouldn't that be something? Because this was back when, I mean, not that long ago, but I guess long ago, is to where that fishery was doing really well, and boats were hard to come by. Like, you had to get on a list. You had to know people.
Okay.
You're like maybe like third on the list of like when that guy maybe retires, because no one ever really retires out of fishing that often. You're like hoping you can get a good boat. Because nowadays you can't, or in the last 20 years really, all these boats were built in the late 60s or late 70s. And early 80s, and then since then, you have the fisheries haven't made enough money to ever buy a new boat, and the fisheries we do. Yeah, there's other fisheries that have hit the gold rush in their certain fishery to where they're able to profit a new boat. But for our fishery, it's just you always look for old. That's the only way you can get into it and afford to do that fishery, fixing something up or keeping something that's already in that fishery in it. And so it's like this perfect diamond in the rough of the gal you met.
Yeah.
And then not only that is we didn't have very much money at all. And so we got lucky that they were also patient with us because they weren't eager to they needed to sell it, but they gave us time to be able to figure it out.
So it took us about a year, a year all said and done of paperwork to find financing, secure financing, save the money we needed for the down payment. So it was just, they were really excited that the boat was going to a young couple. So in exchange, they were just like, here's our price. We're going to hold it for you. They weren't out, searching for the highest bidder or looking for the quickest, easiest transaction. So that's sort of like the serendipity of like meeting this girl in Boise. Her dad has this fishing boat. It's exactly the boat we need. Parents are amazing, helping us with financing, walking us through steps, holding it for us. That was kind of the first okay, I guess we're doing this. Because all those really interesting, weird things just panned out perfectly. And that was the boat we fished on up until 2 years ago. That was like our career building platform.
I love stories where it's like the sign is that obvious to you, where like everything happens so like serendipitously where you're like, all right, this must be the thing that needs to happen. Okay, so then you became a fisherman at that point, Jess. I love that story. That's I love that so much. And then it was really, that was it. Your barista days were over. I guess at-home barista-ing is like, that's the only place. Well, on the boat too. Baristaing on the boat. I'd like to see a video of that, actually.
We do. We have an espresso machine on the boat, which is kind of hilarious. It sounds really silly. On the new boat, though, we were living at the shipyard, and we brought our espresso machine from home when we were living in a travel trailer, building the new to us boat. Okay. And we moved that straight out of the trailer into the boat, so all our stuff went with us, including the espresso machine. So it's silly, but we have one on there.
A good cup of coffee. And now our crew understands,
they do.
At first it was like, oh, everybody's got to make their own cup. Cause I'm like, I'll show you how to do it once and then it's on you. Instead of just having the big pot, and you never know what cycle the big pot is in. Is it thick and nasty, or you can never hit it the same thing twice. We were moving away from plastic stuff. So the Keurig things we didn't feel really good about that.
Yeah. Right.
And even though those made a consistent cup of coffee, it was just like, we don't really want to go that route. And we got lucky that someone gifted us this espresso machine that was broken and we just had to fix a little part. And then it turned out now We have one here and one on the boat, and it's like guaranteed an amazing cup of. You want a latte? You're having a bad day, you just make a latte. Like it's
Makes it all better.
like the crew is like, where do you don't get on a boat and make a latte? That's not pretty common in most boats.
And now you do. On your boat, you do.
Little things in life on a bad day, you just like, oh, okay, like I can get through this.
Cherish those things. Okay, so you've already used some lingo, but I think it might be helpful, like as our convo unfolds some more, are there like more baseline fish terms that we should just like share with everyone listening, watching, whatever, or any other just like FAQ type things that would be helpful in this conversation for people to just have in their minds? Like when we talk about certain elements of fishing, what are some of those things?
Yeah. One that comes to my mind is we're going to use the term trolling.
Okay.
Not usually what people think it is. That's the name of our type of fishery. Okay. Other ones people might hear would be like long lining, seining, gill netting. These are all different methods of harvesting wild seafood. They come with their own permits, regulations. So our main one that we do for salmon is called trolling.
Okay.
You were driving around, dragging hooks that are hydraulically reeled in. The details don't necessarily matter, but when we say trolling, that's what we're talking about.
And
that's
trolling gets confused with trawling.
And not to be confused with trawling, TRAWL, large funnel net on the seafloor, kind of the shameful fishery of Alaska we don't love so much. We're trolling, TROLL. That's hook and line.
And you'll see in the universe that people mix this up a lot.
Very smart people that you would never expect. The terms are not interchangeable. That's kind of a little FYI.
Because our boat we recently purchased and refit to fish our fishery, it was a trawler.
Yes.
And now it's a troller.
Yes.
So it was
that adds to the
that's a confusing one.
That's a confusing one.
And then long lining. So I guess the different fisheries we do. Let's start out with shrimp. We start our season in the spring with shrimp.
Okay.
Which is, here's another term, shrimp and prawn.
Interchangeable.
Okay.
Yeah. Technically, it's a shrimp. Like, legally speaking, it's a shrimp.
Biologically, they're shrimp.
Alaska calls them a prawn, but biologically, it's a shrimp.
Okay.
Even though, like, on our permit card, it's a prawn fishery, right? Or a shrimp fishery. All right. So there's shrimp fishery. That's our May fishery. And then we switch over to lingcod, I guess shrimp is a pot fishery. We use pots. We put them in a string and line, a long lining pot is what it's called.
It's like, think of like charms on a charm bracelet.
Yeah.
So these pots are snapped in along this length of ground line. And then on each end, there's a line going to the surface. That's a buoy line, buoys at the top.
Yeah.
The buoy is the float that you can find to grab the line to be able to reel it up.
Okay. Yep.
So that's a long line pot fishery.
Okay.
And then we do the lingcod fishery for one of our whitefish, and it's called dinglebar, which is an interesting name.
It's a weird, even for Alaska fisheries, it's kind of a niche one.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know about it.
It's not one that a bunch of people really do. It's a thing. It's out there. And it's literally how it sounds. Like, we have this bar that you dingle around the bottom. Like, it's a 5-foot bar, weighs 80 pounds.
Okay.
And then off of this bar, there's a train of hooks, like 11 to 12 hooks. And you have corks on them to keep them floating. So as this thing's being drugged, I guess if it's drugged through the water this way, that it's kind of floating up.
Wow.
Because you're not trying to hook the bottom or beat the bottom up. Like, you're just trying to, like, you want to, they're a very territorial fish. So as long as you get within the nesting ground and you're just like, you look like you're like hunting or you're like whatever you're like, the thing that we're dragging around is like looking like it's going to hunt and go after these fish.
Okay.
Then they're going to go after it. They're very territorial. They're like, whoa, what's this in my space? And that's how we catch them. So we drive around these pinnacles and they get mad because we're in their territory and they come in and bite it. So it's another hook and line fishery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we also get our bycatch of rockfish. We're allocated a certain amount of bycatch that when we're fishing for lingcod, rockfish are the same way. If we accidentally go too slow,
I'll hop in real quick.
They jump on and bite.
Bycatch, another term.
Yeah, here we go. Term.
So often we're targeting a species. We go out to catch lingcod, for example.
But you get something else.
That's what our permit is for. We're out lingcod fishing. But for each fishery, there's we're allocated what's called a bycatch, which means you are going to incidentally probably catch
Other stuff.
this fish and this fish and this fish.
Okay.
Some is 0% retention. We just return them back. We aren't allowed. So say if we were to catch a halibut while we're lingcod fishing, he gets released back into the ocean. That's what's cool about hook and line fishing. You just release him.
Okay.
But maybe say rockfish or some other species, you're allowed a bycatch. Maybe it's 10%. So say for every 1,000 pounds of lingcod you can catch 100 pounds of this one kind of rockfish.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a 50%, or maybe it's a 100%. You can catch 1 pound of this and you're allowed a pound of bycatch of this.
With our rockfish, we kind of have two categories. Rockfish that live to be really old, and rockfish that are very like quick returning cycles. They're younger.
Okay.
And so we can typically catch the younger returning ones because they're monitored every year. Like we just got an email yesterday of our allowance because they just did a survey. So every year the allowance changes. So that's like for a sustainability factor, you're wondering, like people are always wondering when they're buying our fish, like sustainability. Well, these are these factors, these every year factors where we work with ADF, Alaska Fish and Game, which we'll abbreviate it to ADF and G.
ADF and G, there's one, is the
Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and we work closely with them, and they work with us to make sure, like, we want to be able to catch we want our kid Monty to be able to catch rockfish. So, of course, we want to monitor it and not catch too much. So that percentage will change. Some years it's 5%, some years it's 50%. It's kind of what they're seeing in the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that bycatch is always a thing that is adjusted every year. Every year, that bycatch allowance changes with each species.
Yeah.
And because some years we have this yellow eye fish. Yellow eye is a rockfish.
Okay.
It's an older rockfish. It can live to be 100 or whatever.
Wow.
So with those ones, they're very closely monitored because of that age gap. They're not quick returning, so you got to really be careful of them. And so that we'll see that one change from 0% to 1% to 5%.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a very big one. So
okay.
So those are that's bycatch. That helps because each fishery that we're going to talk about has a bycatch allowance, and so those are like some of those fun ones we have for sale here and there. Like like we don't want to. We're not putting pressure on these fish because they're on more of the lower end where we don't want to harvest too many of them because they don't spawn very quickly. So we'll just throw random, like, oh, we got a little bit of octopus this year or a little bit of extra rockfish. Like we're not going to, with our fisheries, we don't go aggressive to like, that's why we fish 6 different fisheries. So we're not trying to put so much strain on one fishery.
That makes sense. I like that. Sustainability.
We finished, that was lingcod. And then we roll in, like once lingcod's finished, then we jump right into salmon. Salmon always not always, but for the last 15 years, July 1st is like the salmon opener, and that's the king salmon opener.
Okay.
And it openers the day we're allowed to fish for them. And then every year it's that same stock assessment with a Fish and Game that we'll find out usually in June or May of how many we're allowed to catch. And they'll put like a guess amount of days that we'll fish for that fish. So king salmon or anywhere we get 3 days to 20 days. Like we never really know because it's just so up in the air of what we get because we have to work. We're managed with Washington. We're managed with Canada. We all have to come to an agreement of what we're allowed to catch.
Wow. A little bit of like a gambling element to this too.
For sure.
And that's why we do so many different fisheries. And that's why we try our best to like tell people we'll try to guarantee you something, but we can't always because we don't know. Like it's like, we'll have a restaurant be like, well, I want shrimp, for 4 months or whatever. And this many pounds is like, well, we're out.
Right.
Or we only have enough for just a few direct to consumer. And they're like, well, can't you just get more? And it's like, no, we only sell what we catch. Like that's been kind of our stick of like, we want to be able to blast freeze what we catch and know we took care of it and bring it to you. And so like, we're not going to be that thing that like, it's like, okay, we'll just get you more. Well, no. We want to guarantee it. So that's why we're going to stick to our guns on it. We know it was responsibly sourced.
Yeah.
It was harvested responsibly and then well taken care of.
I think the word fishery too.
Yeah.
So the word fishery means like a class of fish, like you're fishing Or is that what that means?
Every fish, and even within every species, there's going to be multiple different methods of harvesting.
Okay.
Every harvesting method, one harvesting method might include multiple species. So we have what's called a permit to participate in a fishery called power trawling. And that's how we catch our salmon.
But other people catch their same salmon
using nets.
So it's a drift net fishery. They're allowed a certain way to fish drift net.
So I would say fishery, we're kind of referring to the permit that we have to harvest, and then also kind of to the species. Cool. So when we think of fisheries, like our first fishery is our spot prawn fishery. Okay. And then we do our lingcod fishery, our salmon fishery, our sablefish fishery.
How did you decide on the ones, because obviously there's so many types of fish. I don't know all the fish in I'm not, this is where I defer to you both. But, were there decisions that you had to make of like, okay, we're not going to fish this species, or this is too difficult, or this doesn't make sense for us? Was there anything like that going on?
Most of it all stems to money, or what you're like.
Time and money.
Or your family's like born into. If they're born into like a fishery that's unaffordable, or then it is affordable. If you're born into it, your family was in it. They've paid it over, like kind of like farming.
There's a lot of generational wealth in fishing families, and a lot of that drives people's career decisions, frankly.
Wow.
If you're born, there's certain fisheries that are just have an almost impossible cost of entry now. So Caleb's a third generation commercial fisherman, but he's a first generation open ocean power troller.
Yeah.
So, and power trolling compared to other fishing permits in Alaska, has a really low cost of entry. So that was comparatively to what you can gross in a season.
So that's why we started with this chum fishery.
Yeah.
We spent 5 years. We paid off this power troll permit. And then when we bought our own boat, I had this power troll permit. And we knew that was our guaranteed fishery.
And that's kind of July, August, September.
Okay.
You can fish more, but the meat of it's July, August, September. So that's kind of was like our anchor fishery. Okay, we know what we're doing for the summer. Right. You can power troll all through the spring, fall, winter. And we used to do that. Mental health wise, it was just kind of too much. Okay. But then once we had that anchor fishery, July, August, September, we salmon fish. Okay, what else can we do?
Yeah.
So then sort of you're looking at both, okay, what can we afford to get into? And then what fits in our schedule?
Sure.
So I think then the next fishery would have been the lingcod, right, Caleb?
Yeah, that was lingcod and shrimp we dabbled with in the same year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the time, shrimp was in the fall. So we would come up to Alaska in the spring. We would do the lingcod in the June, salmon July, August, September, shrimp in October.
Yeah. Well, this shrimp fishery was like an open access one. It was a $75 like research spot. So we just attempted to try it. It didn't work out, but we learned how to shrimp. Right. Like we couldn't figure out how to, the shrimp in the area, we couldn't harvest enough to make it profitable. We were spending too much in fuel and time to be able to make it work.
Yeah.
Where then the lingcod was the same thing. It was this affordable permit card that you could just buy every year. And it's really cheap, like the gear that you have to buy to fish the fishery, the fishing gear and the hooks and to build that train I talked about. It's affordable. So that's why that was our second fishery, because we could afford it.
Yeah.
I'd always cruise the ads and just look at all these fisheries and figure out the pricing and the equipment pricing to see what's next. Like, how do we grow how do we grow what we do? Right. And so that's where lingcod popped up, because we had enough money to get into that one.
Yeah.
So, and we got into lingcod.
Yeah.
And so that was our main fisheries was the king salmon fishery, which is king salmon and coho, or it's the power troll permit. We fish hook and line. We use 4 lines. There's a cannonball on each line. We're allowed as many hooks as we can put on. Typically, it's only 15 hooks a line. So 60 hooks, and we're dragging them around the ocean, chasing feed, different kinds of feed for different fish. Like king salmon, we're chasing mostly a herring and a little bit different spots.
Okay.
They're deeper. They're usually a deeper fish sometimes. Some years they're shallow. It just kind of depends on the water columns, what the water cycles are doing and the weather's doing. So our salmon. So we're the king and coho, and then lingcod was in the spring. Mm-hmm. So those were our first 3 fisheries, and then we saved up enough money to where it was the year we put in the blast freezer. That was this. I guess that's our next stage in life, chapter 3 or whatever of our story would be the blast freezer. Yeah. So we have our 2 main fisheries. We're paying the bills. We're making it work. We tried winter fishing. We didn't really care for it because it's like you get your house. We live on the boat. Houses in Sitka to be able to try to live there were just crazy too expensive. So we just live on the boat, and then you'd get the boat set up, and then you'd go out and fish winter fisheries, and the weather's terrible, and you get thrown around. Your stuff's everywhere.
And you can imagine if this is your home, and you have to untie and go out, and all your belongings are getting thrown everywhere.
It'd be like if you had to take your RV to work every day. Yeah. It was a drag.
It was a drag.
And then you come park it in the lot, and that's where you stayed for the night or the weekend or the week, and then you take it back to work. And so it was that wasn't our flow. We like change of pace. So a friend of ours here in Idaho actually gave us a piece of fish and was like, here, try this, and so we took it home. And it was frozen, and we thawed it out. And we're like, okay, we do the same home pack thing, whatever. Okay. And we ate it, and it was like, what in the world? This tastes like, I don't know, we're eating it on the boat, the day we caught it. It's weird, because even our home pack stuff, we take really good care of. We vacuum seal it, we freeze it in a chest freezer, we clean it, make it perfect. It's just still kind of fishy. It's still just not quite how it should taste. It's so eating fish in the winter just wasn't like we would, but it was never you didn't have the same experience of eating fish in the summer, eating fish fresh off the boat, same day, next day. It's just really, really good tasting. And so then we had this fish in the dead of winter that was tasted like we were living on the boat still. It was what in the world? And so then he explained to us hey, no, this is the freezing process. So if you guys are getting into selling your own fish, this is the route you're going to want to go. If you're going to sell fish, you can guarantee this product.
So you weren't selling fish before this?
We had dabbled in just sending out fresh salmon in season.
Okay.
And it was fine. If you can get really, truly fresh fish, it's incredible. So we would go out fishing for a day or two right in front of town, come to Sitka, load them up in boxes, send them out. Those were great. But really most people for the other 40 weeks of the year, we have to eat frozen fish, right?
Yeah.
So that same fish we would also have vacuum sealed, have frozen in a conventional method. It would sit on ice for 5 to 7 days before we were able to get it vacuum sealed and frozen. We were excited about this 5-day-old vacuum sealed frozen fish, and we brought it to Idaho and we thawed it out and ate it for dinner, and we're like, this is not that great. And I know it should not taste like this. It should taste incredible. It should taste how it tastes on the boat, and it didn't. So that was when we met our fleet mate, who actually sells in Boise also, Louis Wild Alaskan Seafood. They're an incredible family. They freeze at sea, and they shared some of their fish with us. We brought it home and went, holy crap. Okay.
Game changer.
This is it. This we can feel really excited to share with people.
Because we had this idea of doing something different.
Yeah.
And so the difference was I'd grown up in a family that's sold their own fish. So it's why don't we sell our own fish? We catch a lot of different kinds of fish. Why don't we do it? And so now we have a way to do it properly. Because with this fresh fish, selling the fresh fish, we're still in the main season of we're just fishing salmon and lingcod. 80 days is basically what you get a fish for salmon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And out of that 80 days, 20 of them will be turnaround, grocery, fuel, weather. So then you're down to
16 days.
Yeah. So you're down to 60 days. And in that 60 days, you're going to have breakdowns and stuff. So you take another 10 days. So now you're down to 50 days. So you're actually fishing. You'll be fishing hard for 50 days. And then if you add trying to do the fresh market, we were losing another 10 to 20 days trying to get fish because we had to be in cell phone service. We had to be able to, we lose 20 more days. And so the cost of fish we're selling, we can't get that price for it.
Right.
And we're losing money because we're missing days. Because at any one of those you really, out of those 80 days, 10 of them makes up your season of good fishing.
Yeah.
You'll have 10 really good days, like 3 good days of king salmon and 7 really good days of cohos. Those are and if you miss those meat of the 10 days, you can have a really bad season.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're in town shipping fish and you're far away from where the fish have moved on to shore, they're biting, they're eating really good, then you just miss the main meat of your season. So with freezing, we're able to fish every day we can and then the boat's full, and it just takes us 2 days to turn around, grocery, unload, water.
Was that a significant investment? So what does that look like, I guess? Because people don't necessarily, I think, understand when we say freezing at sea, what that actually means, and what space does that require on a boat? And how much weight does that take up on? I mean, the whole thing is just how does that work?
We got pretty lucky with our the boat we purchased through the college friend. That one, we named that one the Alsac. So if we're talking about the Alsac, that was our first boat. There's a couple important factors. You have to have space in the engine room. For the compressor condenser unit, it's probably about the size of a pallet, Caleb? A little skinnier, but about a pallet footprint.
3/4 of a pallet, which is big.
Okay.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big piece of machinery. You have to be able to mount somewhere. You have to run the copper tubing through the bulkhead, out of the engine room, into your fish hold. And then you have a about pallet-sized evaporator fan in your fish hold blowing that cold air.
And then you have a generator unit to run all the power for this freezer.
Most boats have small generators. Ooh, let me run my computer and my coffee pot. This is you need a huge generator to run this machinery. You need to have the fuel capacity on board to run your main engine as well as your generator.
Yeah.
You need to have a fish hold that's really well insulated. A lot of boats are just there's a lot of levels of insulation in fish holds. And luckily the Alsac had already a great fish hold that was well insulated. There was space in the engine room. So for us, it was there was the financial investment of purchasing the unit and paying for the labor, but the installation was actually pretty straightforward, wouldn't you say, Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, luckily we're good at DIY, so it's just kind of we'll make this fit, we'll make it work. But that's the reason we also liked this boat, because we knew we could grow with it. That's why an older native guy I grew up around up north in Alaska, in Yakutat. He was his best advice was just go as big as you can. He
said, don't buy the boat you think you need tomorrow. Buy the boat you think you're going to need in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Because by the time you step up,
because he's a
little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better.
It's I played the small game.
Yeah.
I would just move up these little boats that I could that I could afford and just get them. And then he's I spent so much money leapfrogging. I could have already had this nicer boat.
Yeah.
So he's it's, advice to stretch yourself thin, but he's but it'll work out. I know you're worth that thing. Go get the biggest thing you two can buy and that you can grow into, and you'll make it work. You'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. So obviously freezing at sea then netted the product of a great piece of fish when you
so yeah, it's I guess a piece of that just before that we missed there was our fish hold we iced fish in. We just pack ice. We used to just pack we'd go to the cannery, we'd blow a bunch of ice in, and we'd hand pack each fish into the fish hole one at a time, just hand packing them all in there. And so then basically you're getting rid of all that ice, and now you're just a walk-in freezer that you're slowly stacking them up. Wow. So you're actually going out emptier and more rolly than you were when you're icing, because you're icing, you could weigh the boat down to the ice. So it made the boat lighter, but as you fish longer, it's funny because you end up burning a lot of fuel. So you just you barely get neutral. Heavier, but you just kind of stay neutral.
But the product is better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You hope to catch a pound of fish for every pound of diesel you burn and fresh water you use.
Okay.
That would be, at the very least, that's what one hopes for in a given day.
So we're we turned our fish hold from an ice hold into just a walk-in freezer.
Yeah.
And so that took a big investment. I figure,
if we purchased the Alsac
in 20, our boat to pay for the upgrade.
Yeah. We purchased the Alsac in 2016. It would have been, we fished for 2016, 17, 18, and it was 2019 that we installed the blast freezer on the Alsac.
Wow.
So we we luckily found a bank to go through and be like, hey, we're going to put $90,000 into this boat. We think it'll be worth $50,000 more than it is. So we got an as proposed survey, like a price adjustment to like, if you do these upgrades, this boat will be worth this amount of money. Okay. And so we're able to kind of like refinance the boat as proposed.
They're able to lean kind of on the equity that the boat will be gaining as a result of the project.
Makes sense. Okay.
Which most banks don't usually do, but we found someone that went out on a limb for us. She fought for us. We got lucky.
Yet another.
We liked this. She met us, and because a lot of it's, I guess, usually who you know or who you can run into. Yeah. And luckily, like, we're just dumb enough to walk into the proper bank in Sitka and ask this to this one gal, and she's like, hey, this is interesting. I think we could figure out how to make this work. And that was really cool. Like, she fought really hard for us to get that, because on paper, like, it didn't make too much sense for a bank to want a loan on us.
Right.
Like, I mean, we were making money. The boat was being profitable.
Right.
But it was just like kind of a little bit of like, we really had to sell ourselves to the bank to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like Las Vegas lights obvious. It was a bit more
push hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's another fun little aside on all the serendipity of Fairweather Fish, I think. You know, just yet another like, the universe is telling me that yes, we're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this all play into sustainability? So, sustainability has, I think, it's at the core of a lot of the stuff you talk about on your website. So, and I think that that's also something that just people in general aren't necessarily familiar with, of when we say like sustainability with fishing, what that actually means. And like, I think also if we can tie that into how you are fishing today versus how maybe fish you see in the markets, how that fish comes to be, I think that might be an interesting just point of comparison for people that may not be familiar.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I would say I guess there's a lot of different ways to look at it. At a base level, United States managed fisheries are by and large really quite sustainable.
Okay.
I definitely there's a lot of things that I think we as Fairweather do well. I love that our fisheries are primarily hook and line, so we can release unwanted fish. There's a lot of really excellent reporting and log booking within our fisheries. I love with freezing them at sea, we're reducing waste, we're lowering the carbon footprint. There's a lot of great things that we do, but in general, U.S. managed fisheries, they do a great job.
Okay.
So I would really encourage people, just as a general rule, it's really safe to buy fish that is harvested in the United States.
Okay. Yes, I like that. But so obviously when we Fairweather, we're eating a wild caught fish, but how does that, so if we talk wild versus like a farmed fish, what do people need to understand in that, I guess, separation of fish, you know, like
when they're at the grocery store looking at both, and one is, I don't know, $9.99 a pound, and the other one's $13.99 a pound, or whatever that you see at Costco or wherever you're at.
Right.
You're looking at the two and you're like, well, this one's cheaper. I mean, it's more affordable. Just buy it. Like, what's the difference between farmed and wild caught? And honestly, we've gone to really nice restaurants, and it's fun to order the fish because it's product research. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And you ask the server, like, what fish is this? Like, where do you guys get your fish? And most of the time it's the farm. Like the fancier the restaurant, the more likely it is to have this farmed or a king salmon. This like supposedly hard to get king salmon, which is just a farm raised king salmon that's it's fed so many fats and so cultured that it's like it's super oily and good and tasty, like tasty on the level of like it's kind of more plain, but just like fatty and juicy.
Yeah.
And it's because it's kind of this fake manufactured fish to taste how you want it. It's like kind of like a Wagyu thing.
Because
like
it's farmed. It's cultivated to have a certain flavor profile, right?
So of course people are going to like it and I go, it's good. But then you're filled with omega-6s, not like omega-3s, like in your wild fish. So your wild fish has these proper fats that you're looking for, not these bad fats.
Yeah.
You're looking for good fat versus bad fat.
Yeah.
And how your body will metabolize it. So like, I mean, it's cheaper and it's tasty, but you're not, I mean, if you're going to eat it just for the flavor, great. But if you're trying to be sustainable and taking care of yourself and looking for, like me, I'm looking to just make myself feel better and eat right. And, the doctor said I need to eat more fish. Like, you can't just go, if the doctor says go eat more fish, you can't just go eat more fish because every fish is different. So the doctor's meaning you're wanting omega-3s. So you're going to have to start seeking out wild fish. So even if what you can afford comes from Costco, that's great. It's Alaska wild fish. It's got the omega-3s. With that price, you're going to have inconsistency in flavor, which is a bummer. And that's why we switched to freezing and doing what we do. Because we can guarantee you the perfect flavor every time. But with that is the cost. And I understand, it costs us a lot to be, because we're small. And the big people can get the price, the big canneries, they can get the price down.
Right.
Granted, they're also shortchanging their fishermen. So that's why fishing as an industry, small boat fishermen, it's getting smaller and smaller. We're there's less of us in the fleet because a lot of people that are just selling to the cannery, it's getting to these prices where they can't afford to go fishing. And so that's why, our price is higher, but we want to be able to keep bringing you fish because we look at the numbers and we know what we have to sell a piece of fish for to make a living. We're not trying to price gouge anybody. We're just trying to make it to where it's sustainable as in pricing and getting it to the customers and guaranteeing because to be that we have to guarantee, so you have to give and take. And so by our give is we can offer you quality for the more price. So that's why we go through all this effort to make the perfect fish.
And consistency.
Because that's our time. We can put our time in there to make that fish more valuable by taking care of it. And so I guess this, more sustainable factor of the frozen fish versus the grocery store fish is we don't have the waste. You pull the fish out when you want to eat it. As long as that fish is, the vacuum sealed is perfect, or the fish is encased in a glaze, which is we dip each fish in seawater and we call it a glaze. So after we freeze it to -40, we dip them we put seawater down and we dip them in the seawater and it freezes them in time, encapsulates it. So because freezers are meant to evaporate water. Right. And so it's basically the sacrificial, take the seawater, don't take the fish. Yeah. So that way the fish doesn't taste freezery. Freezer burnt. People have these freezers that are auto defrost is the new thing. Auto defrost is just taking all the moisture out of all your stuff that's in your freezer. Gross. So it's not that's why we have to use, unfortunately, we have to seal our fish into little plastic pouches for the 8-ounce portions. It's not our favorite, but our consumer society has gone to defrost free freezers. So to protect the fish from the freezer, we have to seal it in the plastic, unfortunately. Because even if it was a glaze, those defrost auto freezers would just take all that glaze off really quickly.
Yeah. Jess, were you going to say something?
No, I wanted to circle when we talk about sustainability, not so much thinking about our human bodies, but environmental sustainability. Yes. To kind of and I might be wrong, but the definition is sort of weird. We can take X amount from the resource without lowering the overall population baseline. So for salmon fishing, they're doing these annual stock assessments. They're setting catch limits. And we can say that there needs to be X amount of salmon returning to the rivers every year to keep this population thriving. Anything above and beyond that, we can harvest from the ecosystem without impacting that base population level. So that's what to me is just like so incredible about wild harvested fish. Is basically like we can harvest the surplus and that base population still there, able to respawn, able to keep the stock strong. And then we're able to just kind of, harvest the extra. And there's no like input in the way there is with other industries. The input is the other fish in the ecosystem living out their own life cycles. So it's pretty incredible as compared to farming or cultivating fish where they're fed fish meal, which does have to come from somewhere in the ocean, oftentimes from areas or countries where fisheries aren't super well managed. So in farmed fish, that's like one concern a lot of people have is like where the feed comes from, how sustainably was that fish harvested?
Right.
When you're eating farmed fish, you're not saving wild fish. Those farmed fish grew big and fat off of a wild fish cultivated pellet, if you know what I'm saying.
Because some people will eat farmed fish thinking that they're gonna reduce the amount of fish that gets caught in the ocean. But then in turn, what ends up happening is the fish caught in the ocean end up feeding the farm fish.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
There was a documentary on this, I think, that I saw, and it was like, oh God, that's like horrifying. I don't remember what it was, but it was basically, wild all the way. Wild all the way. What's the billboard for just people in general eating a wild caught, frozen at sea fish related to parasites?
For parasites, if we're talking wild fish have parasites. It's the world that we live in.
Most all fish.
Everything.
All fish have parasites.
All, like farmed, whatever.
Yeah.
Fish have parasites.
We can't get rid of them, so we want to destruct them. The FDA has guidelines for parasite destruction. Okay. There's a few different ways we can do it. We can cook our fish to at least 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Can destruct parasites that way, or we can freeze the fish. And the minimum freezing requirements are actually a little lax, if anything. It's about, I want to say like negative 10 degrees for 10 days or negative 30 degrees for about 14 hours. Those might not be the exact numbers, but that's the gist of it. If it's warmer, it needs to be frozen longer. If it's very cold, it needs to be frozen for not that long.
Right.
One thing that we're really proud of with our fish is since it's frozen to negative 40 degrees for weeks and weeks and weeks, we're way far above the minimum requirements for parasite destruction.
Yeah.
But that's the short answer is we need to destruct them. We can do that by cooking it or freezing it. Most people cook their fish. But if you have properly frozen fish, it's neat that then you can cook it to whatever flavor you want. Right. And then we don't have to be concerned about parasites in our fish.
Yeah.
But in general, it sounds icky. But
it sounds icky.
That's why we have food safety, right?
Well, yeah, but I do think that that's an important thing to emphasize is how you're both doing it is not necessarily what the FDA is mandating. You're going above and beyond. Yeah. And so, because I've seen things where, the fish defrosts and there's something wiggling, right? And so
it would have been frozen cold enough, long enough.
Right. Yeah. And you just, and that could put someone off, right? That could make people go, all frozen fish are gonna, be a problem. That's not true necessarily, right? So I think that's a good thing to just maybe bring some peace to some folks about. Now, what about radiation? Anything that we need to know about, or how does that play into the Alaskan waters where you're fishing?
I won't claim to know a ton about radiation. Okay. The vast majority of Alaskan fish are not migrating so far that they would even be anywhere near Japan, where radiation may be a concern. But again, this is not super my ballpark. Yeah. We kind of can think about the life cycle of fish and then draw conclusions accordingly. So say for coho salmon, they stay really close to home. They're born in Alaska rivers. They go out in the ocean, kind of right off Alaska. They eat, they grow big, and then they go back to their river.
Okay.
They're not safe as compared to like a tuna, which we don't catch in our area of Alaska, but certain species of fish are highly migratory.
Right.
In that case, we want to be worried about what's happening across the ocean because that fish is actually migrating over there.
Right.
That's not really the case for Alaskan salmon or most Alaskan fish. I will say king salmon do migrate quite far. But I don't think it's far enough for long enough that anything happening in Japan would like be of a concern. But there's labs that test these things. Universities test for them.
Yep.
So,
or like having a Geiger counter or something on
exactly.
on the boat, right?
Yeah. And there's oversight. There's luckily like industry leaders that are concerned about these levels and are running tests accordingly to monitor them and make sure it's not something we need to be adjusting the industry to account for.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, I think that brings some peace. Although I don't know how often that question gets asked because, when you're talking to people coming up to you at the farmers markets, what are the common or like what are surprising things people are asking you at these things?
Let's start with this one. If we're on the line of parasites and stuff, what's the there's a certain amount of people, we have a few people that buy our fish because we're processing it, or because we're processing it and freezing it so quickly.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't have this
histamine. So that's a really interesting one that I knew nothing about, except for customers informing me and asking me questions. So for a certain amount of the population that has a histamine intolerance, when fish, I don't know if this is true for all protein, but when fish die, they start to accumulate histamines in their flesh until it's frozen, and then that halts the reaction. So for somebody with a histamine intolerance, to them, the fact that our fish is frozen within a few hours of being harvested rather than a week later is the difference of I can or I cannot eat this fish.
That's so significant.
It's really interesting. And this is not just like a one-off. I've heard this from a lot of customers. And so they're my education on it. I can say, hey, this is when my fish was frozen. And they're the ones telling me, oh, that's amazing because histamine is not building up in the flesh of your fish. Then my family can safely eat this and like not have a reaction.
Right. It kind of reminds me of like, I don't know why, but like, a long fermented sourdough. It's like, sometimes
people with histamine intolerances, I guess, often can't eat fermented. It's basically all my favorite food groups that they can't have. They can't have like red wine, cured meats, fermented breads. It has to do with how they the histamines accumulate.
I love that. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about, the fact that Fairweather is a family business.
Yeah.
I think it's really a special, the whole thing is special, but having a baby on board. Let's talk a little bit about that, just because it really is so special. Like, I don't know, maybe you both know a bunch of other people that are doing exactly what you're doing, but you're the only two that I know.
It was common back in the day because that's what you could afford and that's what you could do.
Okay.
I feel like you saw it too in more farming families. Like the kids, like the whole family is on the farm.
The multi-generational family endeavor dream, maybe not out of romanticism, but out of necessity.
Yeah.
Kind of used to be a lot more normal than it is now. We know a couple people that fish as a family, but even within Alaska fisheries, I would say we are more the exception than the rule.
It's going
a family gig.
I see it mostly. It's going away in our fishery a little bit. There's been people that have changed the course and they've been mentors of ours, Louis being one of them, that taught us how to flash freeze.
Okay.
And he has his family on board.
Yeah, they raised 4 kids on board their boat.
Wow, but it's amazing. And so that kind of,
so cool.
For one, that stuff like that gives you hope. You're like, okay, and they tell you, they'll give you some, they're like, yeah, we can do it, and you can do it too. Like you just have to do it. And these are, you're going to change up your fishing style. There's going to be weather days you would normally fish in that you can't fish in because the ocean's too rough.
So adjusting expectations.
Adjusting your expectations for the day.
I would say the biggest.
Like, maybe we'll just do a quarter of a day or a half a day, or we have to move and chase a different coho run on the coastline that's more on protected water. Because now that we have internet all the time, we're able to watch the weather patterns and look for patterns on the southeast coastline we're allowed to fish.
Okay.
And we're looking for, like, okay, this week the weather's going to be nicer on the south end. We're going to move south.
Yeah.
Or the weather is going to be nicer on the north end. We're going to move north to fish for fish. So you kind of have to start making these game changes of, okay, I'm going to have to, like, I'm catching some decent fish now, and I feel like his spot's going to get better, but the weather's terrible, and it's not ideal for our family. So we're going to have to look at another spot and hope it works out. In the last 2 years, it's been working out, actually. Like,
it really does seem to work.
It's taught us how to fish different areas and different styles, and it's made us a little more flexible, I guess.
I would say, though, the biggest adjustment's really been like in our dynamic. Because for almost 10 years, it was the Caleb and Jess show.
Yeah.
We would bring on maybe an extra deck. Once we started adding fisheries, shrimping is like a 3-man job at least. So we bring on somebody for shrimping. But summertime salmon, even when we were freezing, we did just the 2 of us and just said, we'll catch what we catch. And if we don't keep up with the big boys, oh well. And I'm pretty proud of us. Often we did keep up with the boats that had like 3 or 4 guys on the back deck. So that was very cool.
Because boats are set up very archaic. And we were more under you set it up like a machine, very ergonomic.
Trying to ergonomically set things up. So as a 1-man, 1-woman crew, we could keep up with the 4-man crews that are working a larger, more inefficient deck.
Because they were moving the deck. They were moving fish too many times instead of building things to where we're moving fish upwards. So we're never bending over to pick up a fish. You're moving, everything's working its way up.
Yeah.
So you're building everything in like the washing windows mentality. Like, this is your range of work.
Yeah.
If you can keep your work in this range, you can work for a lot longer.
It's efficient.
You can be a lot faster.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's building our boat to efficiency to keep up with everybody.
And then we had a baby.
And
now it was just like the Caleb and Jess show. And now it's the Caleb running the boat and the back deck show, and the Jess keeping the baby alive show for the most part. Like,
and
that
keeping us in the crew fed.
It's changing. Every season's going to be different.
Yes.
But like, I would dare to say that the transition for me has been a lot more shocking than probably for you, Caleb. It's just, it's just really different.
Because you're doing the mom thing.
Deck 20 hours a day out harvesting fish, but mostly just corralling the kiddo and like turning out meals and checking in on how things are going on the back deck, but not.
And then now running the business.
And then simultaneously,
because now, unfortunately, we do have internet everywhere. So Jess is plugged in, making sure online. Whoever's doing our deliveries and what do the restaurants need while we're out fishing. So
a lot of these things have like evolved simultaneously.
Yeah.
With like all within 24 months. New boat, added Monty, added new fisheries, added crew. Fairweather Fish has grown as far as our direct-to-consumer, hiring farmers market employees, weekly deliveries to restaurants.
We added a new fishery.
That's kind of turned into this whole other full-time job.
Yeah.
So that's sort of now on the boat. That's a lot of time toddler wrangling and laptoping and kind of checking in on the back deck. Not as much time actually like with my hands.
Because we have the wheelhouse, two key terms here, wheelhouse and back deck. So the difference is inside and outside. The back deck is outside. We do have like an aluminum cover, but you're in the elements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so me and 1 to 2 crew are on the deck the whole day. So like we're pulling the anchor and we're running to the fishing grounds. The crew's already out back doing one more sanitize over all the surfaces. And then getting the gear ready. And then once we all 3 go out back, we set the gear and we're just turning through lines, because what we're guaranteeing to our customers is perfect quality fish. So we're running through the gear and cleaning each fish as it comes aboard. Because we kind of have these timers. We have a clock on the back, and our goal is, which usually they go down even quicker, is 40 minutes from when the fish comes out of the water to when it hits the blast freezer.
Yeah.
So we're putting it in pre-rigor. And so we have the back deck. So that's the back deck. We're on the back deck the whole day.
I mean, those guys, they go out on back deck at 4 a.m. and they usually don't come in for lunch. Usually I bring everybody plates out back and their burrito in and they're cleaning fish. And then
which here's a big part
they come back in at 10 p.m.
What Jess is like, I just feed them. But like she's gotten off the boat for a week here and there. Like once this year and once last year, and the crew is like, "Oh man, I can't wait for Jess to come back," because I'm so focused on fishing, I don't care to eat. Like I'll just I'm in the zone of underwater fishing, and we're going to look for fish, and we're busy. Mm-hmm. And so we'll just work. And then there's these food sources. I'm like, oh, guys, you can go make a sandwich. They're like, yeah, but you're just still out here.
Everyone needs a mom on board. It's important to have a mom on board.
Jess makes these boys' way of life perfect. If they need to come in and because everybody is allowed to have a bad day here and there. Yeah. And so when you're having your bad day, they can come in and say, hey, Jess, or Jess can be like, what's wrong, And so they can come in and eat their sandwich and get it to someone different. Because we're stuck on a boat for 3 months together. Yeah.
Right.
So we get irritated with each other. And so she's also the mom of the family, keeps us all motivated. Yeah. So there's a huge part that she's like, oh, I'm just in the house taking care of money, but she plays a huge role.
It's very
keeping the business running, keeping the crew morale at its peak. Yeah. Keeping Monty alive and on a boat.
I think any mom can relate, though. The measurability of your productivity really changes. I used to be able to look at a day and my hands cleaned 2,000 pounds of salmon today. And you can measure that.
Yeah.
Being a mom and just these other little micro tasks, at the very end of the day, you kind of look back and go, God, I'm tired, but what did I actually do today? It's a big mindset shift.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And Caleb, I appreciate you calling that out, because I think anybody that does, operational roles, they're often not appreciated to the extent that they should be, but they're vital to any business. And I will say this too about Jess. You're very responsive. You're very responsive to emails. I'm not saying scheduling a podcast, but when I reached out to you, when you sent an email, you responded within, it was super fast. And I was just like, wow. So, and that is definitely something in today's day and age that is not the norm. Okay. So I will say I think it's one of those things too that helps me identify those businesses that I want to have on this show, because customer service and what that means to different businesses is so different to different people, and given how much technology now is infused into our lives and how separate we all are, but how connected we all are, it makes it that much more, I think, striking when people are doing the right thing from a customer service standpoint. So Jess, I applaud you. Very, very, I certainly appreciated it. I tell everyone, I'm like, they're on top of it. Yeah. All right. So is there any moments where you think to yourself, oh, I would have handled that differently had I not been a parent now? Right? In retrospect, are there any of those moments of or just anything recently where something happened on the boat and you look at yourself and go, wow, I probably would have handled that differently if I wasn't a mom or a dad? I don't know. Anything like that?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I think that probably for me anyways, I think that I sweat the small stuff a lot less than I used to.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Pretty much whatever's happening on the boat, if no one's injured or throwing up or crying, I'm like, good. What's the worst that could happen? Because we've had some really, we've had some times where Monty's been sick on the boat and I'm like, do we need to go to town? It's not so, do we go to urgent care is not such an easy question to answer.
Right.
We could lose out on, like Caleb said, one of those season-making days to quit and take him to town. So you're on the phone with the telemed trying to navigate symptoms, or he gets seasick. We all get seasick. But as a parent seeing your child get seasick, is this a normal amount of vomit? Is this an abnormal amount? How do we say, all these things? And none of them have been unnavigable. I think the only time that I ever questioned what on earth we were doing with our life was the very first time we untied the new boat and shit just hit the fan from 50 different ways. And that was the moment of, oh my God, what are we doing? And I questioned everything. And then it's actually never been that bad since.
Wow.
So I don't think I sweat
within the first 6 hours of owning the boat on the water.
We literally got the new boat, was ready to roll. we're in Port Townsend. We had a friend that flew in to run the boat from Port Townsend to Sitka with us because we had a baby. It's a 100-hour run that Caleb made that one time in 2011, and that was it. So we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
He literally shows up, hops on the boat. We kick the welders and fabricators off the boat. There's still all the tools everywhere. And we cut line because we had to make the tides in a certain order to go through Canada.
Because meanwhile, our shrimp fishery is going to happen in 8 days.
Yeah.
And that's in Alaska. So we got to leave Washington to make it to Alaska, to pick up our gear in Sitka, to run back to Ketchikan.
Yeah.
And go shrimping. Because if we don't go shrimping, we can't make this boat payment.
Yeah.
So it's
So there's tools everywhere, and we untie our brand new boat for the first time with our 5-month-old baby and our dog and our family friend, and we leave Port Townsend, and the weather is awful, and there are tools flying everywhere. Nothing is tied down, and I'm trying to put tools away. I have Monty in the little front carrier. He's barfing all over me.
He's not even 6 months.
5 months old. I'm covered in vomit. I get nauseous. I'm throwing up. He's throwing up. Things are flying everywhere. And I just remember just sitting on the ground going, what are we doing? And I hold that in my mind because it's never been that bad since.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You have a very specific point of comparison of like, it was that bad and it hasn't been. So in terms of like, because you've avoided terrible weather, you can now navigate sort of around that. So that hasn't really been a thing.
At times, sometimes you just have to do the thing. There's just no other choice.
Wow.
We've had a couple. Our very last day of fishing this season was spooky.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Yeah, that was kind of spooky.
Yeah, we usually have one a year. It seems like.
It doesn't. We're just normally what's different now is not that we're never in bad weather. It's that we're not as surprised by it. But sometimes it just is. Fishery's closed. We stacked the gear on deck. We have to get to town, and here's what the weather's doing. But we've got to go.
Okay.
And you think to yourself, like, oh, it's only a few hours. Like, we'll bear through this. And then it's a few more hours because we're talking at speeds of 7 knots. So
just
9 miles, 10 miles an hour.
Boats don't move that fast.
So then when you get hit with weather, you cut that in half. You're doing 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So on a run per se of the section of water you're trying to cover to get inside passage, it's typically 3 hours, but now I'm doing half the speed in nasty weather.
And now it's 6 hours.
So at first it didn't sound like a lot, and then once you're in the middle of it, there's no turning back.
No, you're just committed.
Partially because you're committed because it's like, let's just do the thing and get it over with. And also when you are in your boat the sea is moving like this, your boat is moving in the sea. Sometimes you can't safely turn around because you have to expose yourself broadside to the swell.
And worry about your boat hitting sideways too.
So sometimes you are just committed because we physically can't turn around. It would be more unsafe to turn around than it is just to ride this out.
Wow. Yeah. But why was it spooky?
The chances are very, very, very low, but there's always the little voice in your brain that things do happen. If for whatever, we've talked about how serendipity can lead to amazing things happen, things falling in place.
We live our lives by threes. 3 things got to go wrong. Yeah. And so you have you're always waiting and counting these like when you're in a situation, you're like, okay, we've pushed it. We've made the decision to be in this. Okay, maybe that's number 1.
Yeah,
okay,
the weather's a little dicey, but that's fine. We can deal with dicey weather. We have a very seaworthy boat, but maybe we're a little low on diesel. And sometimes when you're a little low on diesel and your boat pitches over, you can catch air in your lines and it could stall your engine.
Oh, no.
Okay, so maybe the engine was to stall. And what if the engine was to stall at exactly the time where that extra big gust of wave came and happened to wash onto the deck? And what if the crew had things laying around the deck where the deck couldn't drain, or just the way things can serendipitously go right? Sometimes things can serendipitously add up in a wrong way.
Okay.
And that just lives in your brain. And it has to for like self-preservation.
And safety.
Yeah.
I mean, for your safety, you go through it like, okay, this is pretty rough. And then now I'm going to educate everybody on board of like, this is nasty weather. We're pushing it. Mm-hmm. So everybody just be alert for the day. We're going to have the crew make sure everything's extra tied down.
Extra Nespresso.
And you're just being on that extra step.
Yeah, extra lattes for the crew.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but we didn't really touch on this. How did you go from the ALSAC to the FV Fairweather? So how was that decision made?
We like to have this thing in the universe a goal. That's what keeps us motivated. Mm-hmm. I think that's been probably the reason why our business has been successful. Because we are goal-oriented people, we have to have something on the horizon.
Something to be said for not really ever fully being content. It's like you hit the mark and you go, okay, now
do better. Yeah, right.
I know, where we should be like popping a bottle of champagne and being like, all right, let's ride.
Yeah,
right.
We both after 2 days of what we think we'll give ourselves a day off, we're like, okay, what's next? Even though 2 days ago we were like, we really need a break. We need to slow down.
Pretty much.
We just get into this mindset of okay, what's next? And even if it's something 2 years out, it just helps us
motivate you.
Yeah, motivation. Yeah. To keep the wheels on the bus.
Sure.
So ALSAC was a great boat. We were blast freezing on board. We could fit one crew member on board for just us two and a deckhand. It was a great platform, but we knew we wanted a family in theory. We needed space for that. We also had other fisheries in mind that the ALSAC wouldn't have been super well suited for because it was it's a big boat, but also a small boat. Okay. Which is kind of hard to explain, but that's
the wheelhouse is small.
Yeah.
So it's really tight. Even though you're on the back deck the whole time, for most time, there's the days you're not. And then the sleeping quarters only slept really 2 people. So me and Jess we're in the bow of this boat, and me and Jess are sharing a bunk. And our crew
is maybe a twin. I was pregnant with Monty, and we're both in this kind of twin-size bed, and there's an overhang. So I literally my face is like this bed, to the ceiling.
Yeah, no.
And then our crew member is sleeping 2 feet below us.
Yeah, this reminds
me. Crazy. We're stacked. We're sardines.
My husband, he's a musician, so I've been on tour buses where. It was a 3-tier bunk bed. And it was I don't even know how I was in the bunk with him because they're not large. It's terrible. Anyway, so I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
outside of
no reason.
The tour bus wasn't rocking the way that the boat was.
That's an added variable.
Okay. Fair. Okay. Sorry.
So we're running out of space and so future family. And I've been looking. I always browse boats. It's kind of like how Zillow. I usually. I mean, I even browse Facebook
people
Marketplace.
Browse Zillow. He browses boats, right? Yeah. You dream, you look. Oh, that would be cool, but
right.
And this one kept catching my eye, and I'm so intrigued by it. And Jess leans over to me, and she's like, "Why don't you just throw an offer out there?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't want a bigger boat."
The boat was very overpriced.
Yeah, and
it's a nice boat.
You didn't know that though. You just said, "Hey, throw an offer," and I'm like, "Wait, hold up. This thing's way too expensive." And when someone lists it that high, you can't go ask them for half and then to be like, oh yeah, sure. It's kind of rude almost.
Okay.
But that's really where that boat's market was half of what it was listed for because there's no way someone could have paid that amount for the boat that fishery could have been fished in.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
So I was like, no, it's way too high. And she's like, and then it's well, you don't want to, I don't know, can we afford a bigger boat? Do you do you even want to do it? I don't know. I was just blown away that she was just go do it.
Okay.
Or at least have a conversation. You never know. So you insult some old salty fisherman that you've never met before and will never meet again.
Right. Or
that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So we called the broker, right?
Yeah.
And kind of got the DL from the broker.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, it's a guy that's looking to retire out.
And then he said, you know what, just call the owner.
Just have a conversation.
Just visit.
You never know.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah, we did. We called a guy up.
Met the gentleman, looked at the boat. I could tell he was excited that we were a young couple.
Yes, the same
He
thing.
was he's kind of a legend in his town. He's kind of a legendary fisherman.
Okay.
Everybody knew him.
Guy, super salty guy. So I think we talked to him on the phone. We went out, we looked at the boat, visited with him and his wife. This would have been fall. Said, we love it. He said, awesome. And we gave him our offer, and he didn't say no. He said, let me think about it.
Okay.
He said, that's a lot lower than I want to sell the boat.
Yeah. And so he thought about it and called us back and just said, I'm sorry, guys, I can't do it.
Uh-huh.
And we said, that's totally fine.
Yes.
Just keep our name in the hat. You know our number.
You know how to get a hold of us.
Pay,
right.
And just let us know.
So that would have been fall, I think. I might be messing this up.
Okay.
But
yeah, it's the beginning of fall.
Yeah. So then we live our life. We live our winter. When you're a fishing family and you want to have babies, you want to not have babies during the fishing season.
No.
So you do the math accordingly. So spring rolls around and we start thinking about having a baby.
Okay.
And that goes well. And we find out that we're pregnant with Monty.
Yes.
But before, because we already told no on this boat.
Yeah.
We took our extra money to get a loan and bought a different fisheries permit.
We bought the permit to go sablefish fishing, which was a very, very large investment.
Okay.
So we kind of had a nest egg. We said, okay, the owner said no to us on the boat. That wasn't meant to be. Instead, let's take this nest egg and put it down on this sablefish permit.
Because maybe this permit will help us to be where we could try to get a house in Sitka.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a way
it's
to diversify.
Yeah.
And then that way, maybe the family can be in Sitka. I'll try to fish out of town. We'll just see. Maybe that'll be an option.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
But we're ready to move forward. So, yeah. So we bought this permit.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out we were having Monty.
Yep. And 2 weeks later, we're working at the Boise Farmers Market, and Caleb's phone rings, and this is the boat owner. Just out of the blue, he calls and says, I was thinking about it, and he offered a little bit more than what we had offered, but not appreciably more.
Okay.
Well, he was like, first he was like, I got this guy looking at my boat. And I'm like, okay, what do you want my advice for?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I don't like him. I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not? And so he goes through the story of this guy that's looking at his boat. He's like, I don't know. I don't like him. And I just don't feel like I want to sell the boat to him. I'd rather sell it to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, what will make that happen to sell it to me?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I want a little bit more.
Okay.
If you could come up to this number, then we could talk. And I'm like, I got to think about it, because I'm like, I already wrote this thing off.
Yeah.
I don't even know now if I have the money for it to make anything happen.
Yep.
I'll get back to you.
You still had the Alsac boat.
Yeah, I still have the Alsac.
Yes.
Obviously, it's smaller, so it's not going to sell for this. It's not going to be.
No, it wouldn't have been a 1-to-1 trade.
Yeah.
This boat was not even set up for our fishery. We knew we were going to have to spend the winter in a shipyard to set it up to go fishing.
Oh, wow.
It used to bottom trawl. And we know nothing about bottom trawling. Yeah. And it's in Astoria. And I don't, that's completely out of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
So we're just like, okay, I get off the phone. I'm like, all right, I'll call you back. I'll give you an answer. It'll take me a couple days. He's like, oh yeah, think about it. I'll give you time. No problem. Call me back. And so we're at the market for the day, just like, well, oh shoot, here's the opportunity, but we already kind of just put it down. We moved past it already. That's something we should actually
it's a sign.
Visit?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, well, we're having a baby and we either need a bigger boat or a house in Sitka.
Yeah.
And technically,
or he'll be gone 7 months a year.
Okay.
Which is what a lot of families do, but it's just never been our style.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen that work out.
We've seen a lot of, even just in our 10, 15 years in the industry, we've seen a lot of families do that are not a still intact family anymore. It's just hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
Not for anybody's lack of trying. It's just really tricky.
Hard. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right.
And so technically at the end of the day, it was cheaper to buy the bigger boat than it was to keep the boat and buy a house in town, because the house in Sitka, if you could find one, were just so expensive. And not that very nice houses. So it's like, okay, I guess we'll go for the bigger boat then.
Yeah. Okay.
And after a lot of hours of then
it was like, okay, can we get a loan for this thing? Yeah. And will anybody buy the Alsac? Which once again, We had a friend in town that was looking to purchase a boat, and we told him what we wanted for the ALSEC, and he said, yeah, sounds good.
Well, because the weird thing is, I was telling my buddy about buying this new boat.
Yeah.
Like, I think it might work out. And then after that conversation, he told his friend, and that guy called me within like a couple of days of talking to that guy. I was like, hey, if you sell that boat, I want my name on the list. I want to buy that boat.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. And he's like, and I want to get it as soon as I can.
Amazing.
And I'm like, well, that usually never happens. Sometimes you're stuck with 2 boats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's super stressful. You don't want to, like, a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you have a fleet of boats for Fairweather? Just have more boats. And it's like, that doesn't work on a small scale standpoint because you're about quality. You know your fish.
Yeah.
There's so much expense and cost into a boat.
Yeah.
It's not, you have to put your life into one boat at a time for our style of fishery.
Yeah.
We're not a corporation.
Right.
If we wanted to go corporate, then we'd be competing with Costco and that quality. And that's not who you are.
That's not
what will work.
Right. That makes
sense. That's not our business plan.
Okay.
It's a family plan. So we want to be on the water. We want to be catching these fish. So I was like, that worked out perfect where so that summer we fished the ALSEC. That's when Jess was pregnant.
Fished the ALSEC the last time, slept in the coffin bunk. And then it would have been that
We
fall.
put earnest money down. So we had the boat locked in.
Yeah.
Okay.
With earnest money and paperwork to knew we were going to basically do a perfect exchange. We sold the boat in September.
Yep.
And for about 10 days, we were boatless.
Did not, for our first time in our adult lives, we did not own a boat for, I think, a little longer than 10 days. It was about, almost a month.
We sold it in
because the ALSEC sold in September, and we didn't close on Fairweather till October.
Unfortunately, we'd already bought this new permit, so then I jumped on a friend's boat and we fished my fisheries permit for Blackfeet on his boat instead.
Okay,
because we were boatless.
Yeah,
briefly.
For October, and then November we drove to Astoria and finished the paperwork. And
were you always Fairweather, or were you not Fairweather until
we have been Fairweather Fish Company LLC since 2016 when we bought the ALSEC. Because the funny thing is, we always knew we loved Fairweather as a boat name.
Okay.
And even in 2016, when we bought the ALSEC and said, "Oh my gosh, this is the most perfect, amazing boat," we always were just like, we love the boat name ALSEC. It's the river he grew up fishing on.
Okay.
And we love the name Fairweather, but Fairweather's like a big boat name.
Okay.
And we didn't know. We just, in our heads, were like, this boat is ALSEC, but we're naming the business Fairweather Fish. And I think that Fairweather Fish is a big boat name. So if we ever get a bigger boat, then it'll be
because the ALSEC River comes out of the big Fairweather range.
Yeah.
So like the Fairweather is this mountain range I grew up around in Yakutat.
Oh,
like
that's cool.
Cape St. Elias to Fairweather.
Mount Fairweather is, I think, the steepest vertical drop peak to ocean in the world or something.
Had no idea.
It's incredible.
Okay.
But we always just had that name in our pockets. And then it was like, as soon as we found out we were getting this boat, like, well, it's Fairweather. Like, there was no conversation.
I love that so much. I thought you were I didn't know that Fairweather was actually like a mountain range. So I just learned
it's a mountain range. And then also below that mountain range out in the ocean, there's essentially an underwater mountain range or a reef, a series of pinnacles under the water.
Yeah.
That's a really productive, incredible fishing place. And it's called the Fairweather Grounds.
Okay.
Because it's a pinnacle underwater mountain range that stems from the above water mountain range.
It's off the Cape of Fairweather.
Off Cape Fairweather. So that's also, we've got the Fairweather Mountain Range, we've got the Fairweather Fishing Grounds, and it's
a
just
place
an incredible.
We love to fish. So that's like why we had that name. Like we want to name the business after that. Instead of like calling it, I guess, like
Caleb and Jesse's
Right.
Wild Robbins Seafood, or we wanted to have its own name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fantastic name. I think you've done well with the name. Okay, we've talked a little bit about just what it means when you're buying local from the actual fisherman and what that means. But I feel like let's expand on that a little bit more, kind of piecing this all together in some kind of a way of support local, what that means, and then like anecdotally, because you're interacting with customers so often, if you have any funny asides of just things that have happened. I mean, I think the histamine conversation was an interesting one, but anything else like that where you're like, oh yeah, or like, okay, that wasn't a question. I feel like you'll have to piece that together somehow.
I got for the first part about how purchasing wild seafood adds resilience to coastal communities. That for me, like, I have a very strong answer in my brain because I grew up in Idaho.
Yeah.
And it's such a melting pot of industries, of ways for families to earn a living, of lifestyle. And that's incredible. But it's not so much like that in a lot of small towns in Alaska. You fish.
Okay.
That, and everybody, it's the one thread that connects everybody in these communities.
Okay.
And it's really incredible to see how deeply fish and fisheries, that's the blood of the community. That's the pulsing heart of it. That's what everybody is connected with. That's what everybody either does or supports for a living.
Yeah.
Is harvesting wild seafood.
Okay.
So it's just incredible that something so simple like having salmon for dinner, whether it's us, whether it's somebody else, somebody went out and harvested that fish, and then it went to the shoreside facility, and then people processed it and people shipped it. And every hand that touched it is like most likely a local hand in that town. It's just very cool.
Yeah.
To me, just how much a single industry can just provide such a vibrant means of living for a community. And it's all centered around this really beautiful natural resource.
Yeah.
That to me is just cool because it's so different than how diverse we are here. It's also scary and why people care so much about preserving wild fisheries. It's really vulnerable to have your community be so dependent on one industry. But I don't know. I just think it's amazing.
That's why the communities are constantly fighting mines and stuff.
Yes.
Because, mining, because they can ruin streams that all these fish they swim up to. And
yeah. In some towns, there might be one town that is literally, their industry is dependent on one salmon run in one river. And there's the harvesters and the processors and the support crew, like fabricators, and everyone's dependent on that one river.
Yeah.
And then way, way, way upstream, somebody's going to propose, perhaps putting in a mine. Right. And so that entire downstream community really has to band together and advocate.
So it's like, have you ever seen, one of them was the Pebble Mine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure those stickers have made it all over because they did such a good job at being heard.
Right.
And so that's the constant, you have constant battles in fisheries.
Wow.
And like our battle at the moment right now is between the sport fish regulation, between the commercial regulation. We see that a lot where, the tourism, our cruise ships coming to Alaska because they want to see Alaska.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to properly bring that money in to help the community, but because fisheries aren't what it used to be to the amount of money they were bringing to the community. So you kind of you need to subsidize your community a little bit, but not let them take control. Because there is towns where the cruise ships have taken control of the town, and you have these fake sections of town that only run in the summer, and then in the winter there's nothing there.
Yeah,
I feel I've been to a couple of those.
Yeah.
And so
there's a time and a place, but
and they do help the community. So you try to find these balances, and so it's nice if you're supporting these small scale fisheries, not just being us. There's multiples in the area, directly from the fisherman to the consumer. And you're not just going with that piece of fish. You're supporting our family, but you're also supporting a lot of other people's family because we're keeping these fisheries viable, to keep these towns alive, to keep that grease going of the community of we're not, we have enough money from fisheries, so we don't need the 100% of the cruise ship and ruin this small, beautiful town. And so it's all going to keep a lot of people going, a lot of schools and everything. And
that makes sense.
So, when you're looking at it, the expense is it's trickled down to a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Instead of one just big corporate operation.
Yes.
And then a lot of big operations, a lot of it will be secondary packed, and the fish just gets container vanned. China comes back as your fish fillet. Yeah, it was a fish. They can say it's from Alaska, but it all got sent to China to get turned into literally a fish, or you'll see Alaska seafood at Jack in the Box or at McDonald's, and this piece of white fish from up north that got shipped to China, turned into a patty and brought back. So you have to kind of dig down a little deep too, where that fish is coming from.
And I think that's an important, like I meant to bring this up earlier when we're talking about what's good fish, what's bad fish. Is wild good, farmed bad? Is it that simple? Not always.
Okay.
Because, I mean, some of the best trout in the world comes from Idaho, right? From the farms out in Twin Falls and Hagerman.
Okay.
So I feel like rather than getting too hung up on wild versus farmed, maybe more so, can we know our harvester / producer? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably a good source. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Know your farmer, know your fisherman. Yes.
Yeah, knowing your farmer, maybe knowing in Idaho, knowing your fish farmer is not actually a terrible thing. There's some incredible fish farms here.
Yeah.
So wherever it is, because there is some wild Alaskan seafood that is caught by this huge net, and there's a bunch of unsustainable bycatch, and then it's shipped to China and repackaged and brought back. So it's not always so simple as wild equals good.
Right. Okay.
Wild equals better choice, I think, a lot of the times, but truly at the meat of it, the closer you can get to the producer,
the better,
I think, is the best choice.
For the the method of catching by net, and with all the bycatch happening, how does that work? If it's all in a net and then it's all getting like thrown into something, how does that work?
Well, it's hard. So there's some salmon fisheries that are net where there really isn't very much bycatch because salmon just tend to school up together.
Okay.
And you can kind of literally scoop up the entire schools. Or if you're setting a net across a river where there's literally just salmon going up that river.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say
you can't
net
lump
equals
net fisheries
net
together
does not
because
equal bad.
There's three main net fisheries.
Okay.
One of them is pretty intense and pretty brutal. Where we have the other two. So like we have our set net, drift net.
Mm-hmm.
It's these mesh. You're targeting a certain species by the size of the mesh that the fish swims into.
Okay.
So you can target species. Like if you don't want to catch king salmon, use a smaller net.
Because the big fish will just bounce off the net and swim away.
So then you're they're fishing a certain river at a certain time to catch a certain fish. So they're super clean. Like there's
amazing
drift netting and set netting. I used to set net. There's a couple at the farmer's market that drift net.
Okay. And we talk about
great quality
in documentaries, that big net scooping up the fish. There's sometimes that seining, and that also they're looking for these big schools of salmon, and there really isn't a lot of other stuff swimming in with the salmon. Like kind of hangs out with like.
Okay.
And you see the school, and you go out and scoop it up, and
they're small. They're still like they're catching at a bigger scale, but they're still small enough that they're caring about their resource because they want to keep fishing forever. And they're all actually owned by fishermen. And then once you get past that is in the trawl.
And that's
that's the big money corporate. They're just some are dragging the bottom, mid-water.
That's the wild American fish that we are not super proud of. That exists on the market.
That has a high bycatch rate.
It does.
It doesn't really go to support small communities.
No.
Some of them will support a few small communities way up north. Like you can't say it doesn't completely.
Yeah.
But also it feels like it causes more damage than not.
Yeah. How did you decide between doing the net versus the hook and line?
Just dumb luck, I guess. It was just
So you grew up set netting.
I grew up
and then
set
you
netting.
Went out open ocean hook and line fishing with your family friend.
Yeah, and just got sucked into it. I fell in love with it at the beginning because I knew I wanted to do one of the fisheries. And drifting was really intriguing. I wanted to go up north and drift net, but I didn't know anybody there. So it was like, I know this guy that trolls. I'll jump with him and check that out.
Got it.
And then just ended up the wheels just got the ball got rolling after I went with him, and then my dad or my grandpa's buddy that sold this boat. And so it was just this tidal wave of this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then when we rethought what we were going to do to invest, we were kind of in that already. So it's like, let's stick to that fishery.
That makes sense.
We have this idea of what we think we could make it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why we stayed into
another element of serendipity in the Fairweather story. Sure. Okay. I asked this to everybody. What does wellness mean to both of you?
I would say for me, with fishing, we can't really think about wellness in a super traditional sense. Because honestly, I mean, you are not really doing the things that well people do. You're not really sleeping or going out for walks in nature or doing a lot of that kind. There's not a lot of access to fresh produce. But for us, we are living a life that we're really proud of, and it's really in accordance with our values.
Yep.
And that, for me, that's what does it. That's what makes me sleep good at night.
Okay. Living in alignment with your values is wellness. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I guess it's more of like, I'm on a mental wellness. Like, it makes me feel good to like work, like the stress and everything, I'm sure, but then I feel like maybe some of it's counteracted by like some of the beauty we experience all summer long. Right. And that's what's cool to have crew members is like, I get jaded of seeing a whale because there's lots of whales. Oh. And then you'll get a fresh crew guy that's like yelling out the back deck, do you guys see what's out there? And it's like, you see this guy's excitement and you're like, oh yeah, like this is sweet.
That's incredible.
Like, he is jumping completely out of the water and waving at us. Like, the whales are doing cool things. So like you're surrounded by that.
Yeah.
The peacefulness and the quietness of being out there on your own. Like you are disconnected for like 6 months. Wow. And that's pretty free and not like you're completely away from your phone. Like I'm not on the deck scrolling. There's no scrolling.
No.
It's like you're working. And then like these days that you have where you're working at least 20 hours a day for days on end and you're not sleeping very much and it's intense and you get through it and like at the light at the end of the tunnel when it's over, like the accomplishment you feel when it's finished, it's like it's super rewarding. And then you have to explain this to the other crew. Like me and Jess know this. When we work together, we didn't have to talk about it, but like on the deck I got to talk to these guys of like, I know we're in it. It's not going to be like this every day. This is really hard, but like wait till you look back and realize like what you just accomplished with your body.
Yeah.
Like it's cool to see what you can make your body do.
Sure.
I guess, which is, I mean, I'm sure that's what like a pro athlete feels like when they just run a marathon or whatever.
I wouldn't go comparing us to pro athletes.
I don't know. Like they're pushing themselves and it's on the sense of like wellness, but they've had to turn their body into this machine that's probably over the needle of wellness because they're pushing themselves to this next level. So like, when you do that and then you look back and you feel like, like I accomplished that. It feels good. It feels great. I don't know. And it's like, I wouldn't say healthy, but
I think the resilience and grit though I think that is healthy. Like we talked about what's the bar for a bad day? Mm-hmm. Compared to a lot of the days that we have on the boat, like we had talked about, our bar in normal life for a bad day is very, do I want to say very low or very high? We don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Are there things that you both feel like you have to do for like the day to really be set up for success? And then how does that look a little, is it the same on land and on sea or do those things change?
Oh man.
Sometimes at sea it's a little easier.
That's true.
Because it's like it's almost our 9 to 5.
There's more
like structure. My alarm goes off at 3 a.m.
Wow.
And I start my day and I'm like, that's every day. That's the way it goes. We get up, I get the engine warmed up. I check everything. I pull the anchor. I steam out to the grounds. I wake the crew up, get their coffee going. And then we start fishing, and it's very like we know what we're doing every day. Other than you have the stress of where the fish moving and whatnot, but you're in the system. You're in that fishery, and it resets between fisheries because your mindset of how you structure one fishery versus the next. You have your routine for the fishery. So I'd say it's pretty easy. So then when you come to here, it's not quite as structured. There's our farmer's market on Saturday. So I know I get we wake up at 5, we pack the truck, we get everything set up and we go to our farmer's market. And that day feels great because it's a structured, easy, simple day. Tuesdays is our restaurant delivery day. That's always pretty simple because it's like, we know, we got our list of everybody who wants what at what restaurant.
Okay.
We go fulfill that order. But then you have these in between days of like, okay, now we have to fill these days.
Yeah.
And we have some stuff to do, and we're balancing this new thing of having a kid now.
Balance.
Because Jess is watching Monty on the boat.
Yep.
And I'm working.
Yep.
And then now, and she's kind of the deckhand. And now I'm the deckhand, and I'm watching Monty, and she's on the computer doing business work.
Yeah.
And so like that's where I'm the stay-at-home dad at this point, and she's the stay-at-home mom technically on the next point. Even though we're together, we play very different roles. Because I would say like Fairweather is Jess's brainchild, the business. The what you read, what you see, what's posted,
right,
and that takes a lot of energy. Then the fish being caught is what is my section of it, and that takes my energy for that section. Right.
So like just for you in the morning, for both of you, it's like you have your Nespresso and you're good.
That's it for me.
It's a pretty simple, as long as we're catching fish.
That's it. So before we wrap things up, we're gonna do a quick fire. I'm gonna say a question, and you both are gonna just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And hopefully it's just fun. Okay. Early bird or night owl? Even though I feel like the job dictates this, but early bird or night owl?
Early bird in the summer, night owl in the winter.
Hibernate like a bear. Favorite color?
Blue.
Oh, yeah. Like a bluish green, like almost a teal. Not quite a seafoam, not as like neon as seafoam, but like teal.
I appreciate this. I like it. Okay, that's good. Okay, what was the first paying job that you ever had?
Fishing, but not fishing related. It would be farming.
Oh, okay.
I just would help a family friend farming. That would be something I did in high school that wasn't related to fishing, but I started fishing. I made money fishing when I was able to work. So it was like 13. No, it was 14 because I was able to buy my own permit when I was 14. So I bought my first fisheries permit when I was 14 because my grandpa broke his shoulder.
Oh, wow. Okay. Jess?
Barista.
Barista. Okay.
How do I get my skills?
I love that. All right. What's your favorite cuisine?
Oh, maybe Thai.
Ooh.
It's a pretty good toss-up between good curries or like Japanese, like teriyaki, Japanese style foods, I guess.
Do you make your own curries or you like to source curries?
We get a curry paste, but then I like to build it from the paste. I wouldn't say...
What curry paste do you get?
The Maypoi is the easiest one, the little plastic jug.
I thought you were going to say Mike's Curry Love, but have you tried his curries? Oh, you should try Mike's. Try Mike's. Because they sell them at the co-op. Well, I feel like you can find them in a lot of places. Mike is going to be on the podcast too. But he does some great curries. And uses a lot of really clean. So his stuff is really
because Maypoi, I don't know where they're pulling it from. Yeah. But it's just like I need a base to get started. Because building the curry from scratch, I would have to spend so much money and time to find all that stuff to build it. Mm-hmm. But we can really grow off it when you start with fish and then you do the curry paste to cheat. And then
I feel like I should bring you one of my Mike's Curry Love packages because I have I somehow stocked up and I have 30. So maybe when I see you, I'll bring you one of them so you can try it. All right. Favorite fish to eat?
I like salmon. I'm a salmon gal. I eat it every day.
I mean, salmon's my typical love, but lately, the last 2 years, black cod, sablefish has been just hitting the spot. The oil, I guess. Mm-hmm. Oily and super good.
Oily and delicious. Mm-hmm. Favorite band or favorite singer? Or favorite kind of music?
I'm just going to say Taylor Swift. I'm not like a complex human.
And Monty falls asleep to Taylor Swift.
Monty thinks Taylor Swift is his mom. It's fine.
Swiftie. Yes. Okay. Caleb, same. Are you a Swiftie?
I don't know. I've been in the era of the Pixies and the Cure, I'm stuck in there. I go back to them a lot more than I do some of the others. I'm an indie. I like the indie.
Yes.
Indie style. That was early indie, I feel like, but I like from there to probably 2013 indie, because then from 2013, the newer indie hasn't been as, hasn't been hitting.
Not hitting as hard. Okay, what's the one phone app that you cannot live without?
I like Instagram. An Instagrammer.
Yeah.
It is what I love to hate it. I hate it, but I love it.
And probably my phone says between it'd probably be Facebook Marketplace.
Facebook
Just the marketplace. Other than that, I don't know. I just like to browse and see what's like, what people are moving and trading. Like, it almost tells you where the economy is at when, like, oh, now cars
they're selling a boat, maybe. Right.
So between that and Instagram, I like pictures. I'm a sucker for pictures.
Okay. All right. What's the one word you would use to describe your business journey?
What's the word for like when something like forms you? Formative? Is that a word?
Oh, it's been a formative journey.
Formative? I don't know.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
Or like fishing has taken us on a journey.
Kind of, yeah. What I want to say formative. It's sort of been the thing that's ruled every other aspect of our life. Like we're fishermen that try to live a real life, not real life people trying to be fishermen. If that makes sense.
Right.
I should come up with my own answer, but I'm terrible with words. Jess is our word person. No. Usually I'm the one like describing like how to say
how you say.
That's me asking Jess before I reply to someone. Like I'll write it up and then have her fact check it. Like, is this okay?
Right. Sounds like a good partnership. Okay, if you could have any entrepreneur as a mentor for a day, who would it be?
He was been on my mind the last 3 years, I guess, because I've been intrigued with his success, which would be James Patterson. It's the guy that created Canfisco, but he didn't start with Canfisco. He started with
and this is a fish company.
A fish company guy, but he started with car dealerships. And then got into car dealerships and got into one and turned it around and made it profitable and then got more and then would start that journey of he had this extra money. So he'd buy businesses that were failing.
Smart.
And kind of fire half the people and get it to run smoother. It would be very, it was mostly like when he was describing a company that failed, it was mostly because it was top heavy. More than bottom heavy. Yeah. So typically a lot of the people that complained about being fired were the top tier people. They'll be fine. They'll find another job. And then he would mostly keep the hard working employees. And then was just doing so good. He got into fisheries because he ended up buying a grocery store chain that was failing and ended up making it massive. And then to supply the grocery store, he wanted good seafood. So then he bought a fish cannery and now they own quite a bit. So I guess he has a sense of, not just fisheries, but real estate, marketing. It'd be a full on like snapshot of a lot of different things, which I don't know if you could get enough out of that, out of someone like that for one day, but you could try.
Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom that can happen just in a day. Is there a book that has significantly influenced your mindset?
If it's supposed to be a quick answer, I would say Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, yeah.
All of his podcasts, his books.
Anything.
It's like Jess got me hooked onto it. And
I'm going to attach myself to that.
Because our main one, the main one that we live by in the last 5 years at least, since we heard the podcast, was Eat the Frog and when to pull the goalie.
Pull the goalie
is like a huge one. Like, when I don't know if you've heard that. Have you heard that podcast? Like, it's always too late when they decide to pull the goalie, the odds.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like in our life of what we'd like to do and expanding our business, it's like, like right now we're at this point of with Fairweather Fish, like we're running it out of our house. It's too much to have a house and a business. Can we afford to grow into
a commercial
space? Do we want to go brick and mortar? Like if I had my dream world, I would have a mini restaurant, a brick and mortar to sell fish. But like those are things that are just too much, we wouldn't be able to be as probably direct with our customers as we are staying kind of what we do. And so it's like with pulling the goalie, it's like, we don't want to be too late with a business growth, I guess. Before, I like that. Is it too soon? Is it not soon enough, or is it too soon? Or are we too old now to make that step for our business? Like, I don't want to make that step maybe when I'm 50, because then what if we want to do something different in our 60s? So I guess,
timing.
The Gladwellian mindset is in you. Okay.
I guess, yeah.
I like it. Besides your own, what's another favorite small business?
I'll shout out our homies at Earthbag.
That's funny.
It's pretty
yeah.
yeah. It's just cool. It's just like to find a product that's so like accessible. It's a tasty drink. Who doesn't like a tasty beverage?
But it's completely different.
But it's different.
Yeah, it is.
It's unique, but accessible.
Yeah.
Which sounds very cliche, but I think it's way cool what they're up to. It's been really fun to watch.
And once someone hears this, they can tune into their episode of the Dean's List. So way to prime that. That's perfect.
Yeah, there's been a lot. There's a lot of cool ones in this valley.
Yeah.
So
there are.
Yeah, the unique ones are really neat, and that's what the farmers market has been amazing for, to get to like this foundation of other people. It's like we have this community.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you could instantly acquire one new skill, what would it be? Instantly.
Maybe to speak another language.
Hands down.
That's good.
Yeah.
Language.
Spanish. If I could just absorb Spanish.
Instantly.
We could cover a lot more ground. Spanish or... I guess Spanish covers more of a range, which would be nice.
Yeah. Would love to speak Spanish.
Good range. If you could time travel to any period in history, which era would you visit?
As a woman, they're not that great for the most part.
Because I'm fisheries mindseted. I'd be in the 80s before everything got... When it was like the gold rush. Every fishery was a gold rush at that point. The money you were making in fisheries was big. Crazy. Because of the costs of things like fuel and how cheap boats were to make. I guess 70s and 80s, like you could pay for a boat with a year's worth of fishing.
Malcolm Gladwell talks a lot about right place, right time. A lot of industry leaders in fisheries, these guys that have just made it with an uppercase M, it was because they were in their early 20s, in the late 70s, early 80s, when all of these regulation changes were happening, and it was just gold to be there at that age, at that time.
Were you also going to say the 80s, though?
I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know.
I guess it was 70s, 80s, right?
70s, 80s.
70s, 80s.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. Yeah.
That's fine. This is a hard one. If you weren't doing the fishing game, what would you be doing?
I'd hope still be an entrepreneur in the valley.
I would want to be an entrepreneur in something creative. I don't know what. But like create a creative space.
But this goes back to where I said my dream restaurant.
Chef. Where do you see Fairweather in the next 5 years? Are there any new projects, products, anything that, you both are particularly excited about?
Ideally, we would like another kid or two in this realm of the fisheries world. So we'll be busy, but we also, right now, we're moving our website over to a new platform because we're trying to make our web orders a lot more user-friendly. Everybody that's been with us, they've been doing good, but we still have a lot of Jess spends a lot of time like on every order.
Explaining things?
Yeah. Okay. It takes a lot. It's the minutes per order adding up now that we've had really good growth. Every year has been a steady growth. Yeah. So growing the business, and as of we're kind of rebranding. We're trying to rebrand it, coming up with like a nicer themed logo. So expect a logo theme, hopefully adjustment towards the better, being more in that, that timeless, like, here's our brand. You'll be able to just, I don't know, be very noticeable. Trying to grow into being a little more available, because this is like this talk we've been having with like, not a full-on storefront, but a little bit of a storefront warehouse where we're like generally located. And I don't know if that consists of being like, ideally in a perfect world, we'll have like our own little fish market, because we have one fish market in the whole valley. Like if you Google fish market, there's really one just dedicated fish market.
Is it on Insta?
Yeah. Okay. And so it'd be nice to actually have an easier fish market, I guess, or another one in the valley for our name to be out there. It's hard to get our name out there. We're struggling with advertisement. Because our growth has been everybody's friends and neighbors. everybody invites someone over for dinner, or they give their neighbor a piece of fish, and it's all, or like that. Our growth is mostly through that. It's not very, like, we'll have some find us randomly, organically, but so yeah, like this, like the podcast stuff, like figuring out how to get our name out. We're trying new avenues. So whether it's putting our write up about us in a magazine, and still being affordable, because I don't want, we're trying to, like we were saying earlier, stay genuine, stay very direct with our customers. And if we start spending too much money on advertising, our prices would have to go up. And I don't want to do that to our customers.
Well, like right now, how much are you not selling? So like based on the current, your current customer base, is there still like such a surplus that you've not been able to sell?
We could just move more out of wholesaling fish and more direct to customer.
I see.
So ideally it'd be nice to have a couple more restaurants, and that'd keep it a little bit more diversified that way. And then just a few more in that direct to consumer line.
Do you have, like, on the website, the restaurants that you supply to?
We should. We have I think we call it a
like your
stockists. I believe.
Okay, yeah, that's
is
good.
What it should be. Is what it should say on the menu.
That's good.
Yes,
okay, perfect.
Stockists. And so if you go on their website, go there, and then I want to try to, like, that's part of this rebranding, like what we see our business growing into. I'm hoping on the website it just becomes a little more cleaner of like where to find us and why to find us there, and like how we can help boost, because like these restaurants are going out on the limb, spending the money to get this fish for us. I want to make sure we can send our people to them too, and like, why are they so great? So like making sure we're working together. Well, you should also like consider doing some more collab, like some social collab stuff on Instagram, because that's another way to pull, the restaurant and you, and then just people understanding that you're the one that's supplying the fish. So, no, but that's, yes, I agree with you. We all should be supporting those restaurants that are doing the right thing and actually buying local. Instead of eating out 10 times a month, like eat out 3 times a month and go to a really good restaurant.
Yeah.
Because like the prices are getting very even now. And like even with fast food, it's how expensive it is. Like it's, at the end of the day, it's $10 more a plate, and I know that's expensive. But then just cut out 2 times you think of going out to eat or getting food delivered 100%. To your house, and just like save that for, someone that's going to put the care into the plate and eating something that's like that much more amazing, because the experience is really, really fun. That would be our growth of the business. That's where we're hoping to expand to, is more just being more available to the community. And then,
I love that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So like we want to stay small. And we want to make sure we can connect to each customer. That's our biggest one is our pre-order that you're paying.
Yes.
We're pre-ordering all summer long, and we value our relationship with every one of our customers. And so we're trying to figure out the proper growth to get a few more pre-orders, but we want to be able to make sure we can stay as connected as we can to every one of our customers, because everybody has a name that means something to us, and they've been with us for years, and we don't want to lose sight of that. We want to have the conversation of, how is your summer? How are you doing? You kind of saw what we were doing. Like that's a part of like why we love what we do, is these interactions with everybody. So we don't want to get big to where we can't have these conversations. So we want to make sure we're doing proper growth to where we can actually be able to have a better conversation with every one of our people that pre-ordered. And so like right now we're doing out of the reefer truck, and it's like quicker. So we've extended our timeline, so everybody picking up, we can get a little extra time to talk. But there's also the line. So I'm hoping like we can find a situation where people can meet us somewhere and visit a little bit longer, and just like make sure I don't want to get away from that relationship we have with every customer.
That makes sense. I believe in you both. You will do it. Okay. So because you're both entrepreneurs, and I think entrepreneurs that have followed a passion, and built something that I think is very special, what advice would you give to just someone else that's starting a new business?
the biggest one we've seen with friends and people is sometimes people are choosing what they think is the easy factor, like quick, easy money. And then they're not looking back and thinking like, is this something I love? Can I be passionate about it? Because if you don't show that, you won't receive it. And that like it's easy in our day and age to like, oh well, people just make big money on crypto. People made big money on like just YouTube videos. Like all they had to do was just throw a video out. And it's like, no, that guy on YouTube spends hours and hours to make each one of those videos. Like he's working late into the night, early into the morning. Like he's not just like posting some people are, but most of the people that have a real channel or situation going, they've put you can see their love into it. The people that are doing well I feel like in some of these businesses we've seen pop up, their passion, and so they can explain it. They're not hiding anything. It's 100% them. I would say like making sure the business you grow into, make sure you are passionate about it and that you care about it and it's your values. And I think it'll just take off because you are into it. Like instead of just like, I don't know, dart at the dartboard, what makes the most money. And I see our day and age of like people are trying to find those easy routes. And so they're very hard because it's not easy to them because it's not their passion. Right. So I don't know. That would be kind of my thing that I've seen. Yeah. So I guess my advice would be,
that's a good one.
Like when you find something you're passionate about it and go in hard, because what do you have to lose? Just like, okay, you restart, like you failed. Cool.
We had that conversation a few times, like in our...
Every time we make a big decision, we ask ourselves, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
That's a good one too.
Like,
I think that's
you can always restart. There's lots of jobs out there. So like jump and go for it. Mm-hmm. Like
jump and go.
Like it's not like what do you like? Yeah.
Yeah,
I interrupted you slightly. Like,
no, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, was just rather than picking it like you have to crunch the numbers. It has to make sense on paper for sure.
Yes.
That said, though, not just picking something because it's hot, because it's trendy, because it feels like, I'm sure people do with podcasts. Oh, well, I could just, this is just going to present as this wonderfully cute, well-produced podcast. And you have put hours and hours and hours and hours that we could never count into all the back end of making this cute moment happen. Right? I feel like that's like the iceberg of small business is what people see and think like, oh, that looks nice. And then everything that got you there.
The reality.
Right? So I was going to say though, exactly the same thing, but picking something that you're passionate about and creatively energized by. And I think people will vibe with that and want to pop aboard.
Crossing fingers. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you were hoping we were going to talk about?
Oh.
Anything we like our viewers to understand?
I think also the farmers markets are a really good way to like just gauge the things that people are asking you to just, self-reflect and go, wait, have we not answered that before? Right? Like,
they're amazing. The farmers market's been amazing that way.
Yeah.
Like day one of the farmers market, we're like, oh, we're going to go broke because we only had like 3 people buy fish. We showed up and we had what we thought would be a nice setup. And it was just very like, okay, like it was a learning experience. You start getting snowballed these questions and how am I going to answer it? But that's where luckily enough, like it's our passion. So that's where you get to answer it. And then they get to see that you are authentic. And so that's why we push, like, that's what I was saying before with like advice to some other young people. Make sure you're very authentic and real with people, because in this day and age, you got AI and stuff. You're like, what is real and not real? Just like be as real as you can with people. I think
people can really like, we're sniffing out inauthenticity like never before because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think kind of comes into too, having a business that you're passionate about. I think that hopefully comes off, that you're not having AI writing your prompts or telling your stories. Like, I think people more than ever really want like an authentic human connection. And if we can offer that, then it's, if you like salmon, cool. If you don't, also cool. It's just fun to share stories though as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so how can everyone find Fairweather? So all the website, and then whatever social media that you guys have.
Facebook and Instagram. We probably share, just kind of old school, we probably share more on Facebook than Instagram, because my sort of personality is more like long form storytelling. Okay. So I ramble on Facebook. So if you care to read that, Facebook would be a good place. And even the best place would really be our email newsletter. You hop on our website and scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a little box to put in your email address. That's really my favorite form of communication. Maybe once a week, maybe once a month. We kind of just share some long form storytelling of what we're up to. There's a little bit also like, okay, here's where you can find your fish, but also a lot of like, this is what our family overcame in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of my favorite way to really share the status of Team Fairweather. So
you're kind of like living vicariously through some of your ocean adventures, which I also, as someone that's not fishing, I appreciate. Okay. Well, and it's fairweathersalmon.com, right? The website?
So, website is www.fairweathersalmon.com. Socials is Fairweather Fish.
Okay, perfect. Caleb, Jess, that was a hearty discussion for us, and I appreciate you both, and I am so happy that I am a customer and that you're feeding me high quality fish. And yes, I'm just going to manifest that I have my daily smoked salmon budget. That's what I'm manifesting. Manifesting things, and I'm also manifesting things. But thank you so much for being on the Dean's List.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Dean's List. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to stay updated, and follow us on Instagram at official_Dean's List and YouTube at It's Official Dean's List. I'm your host, Allison Dean. Until next time.